I wanted to take a moment to introduce a couple of new intersex attendees we have on board. So I wanted to start with Eliana. Eliana, welcome. And I'd love it if you just take a few minutes to share whatever you'd like about your project in New Zealand and your background.
Well, in the background, I have the intersex flag, but like obviously like a little bit more sort of artistic sense. So the intersex colors are pretty much like a golden yellow and a purple. And the golden yellow, these two colors are seen as non-binary colors in the sense of like our bodies not necessarily meeting an expectation, whether they're male or female. We are just a simple natural variation of the multiple ways of existing. Yet our bodies are all constantly everywhere in the world being harmfully modified to meet a standard, a medical standard that has defined that bodies only fit into two boxes, which is a male body or a female body. So yeah, so these colors are pretty much like that. And that circle means the integrity, that what the intersex community everywhere in the world wants is that we want to be whole. We want to be complete because we were born whole and we want to be whole. And unfortunately, many intersex people in the world are incomplete, are broken, and they're being cut into pieces. We've been mutilated. We've been ostracized during millennia. And our history has been erased because our history has been seen with shame, because our bodies are a challenge to the historical nature of the binary. We've been existed in every single culture, and we are across everywhere. We are in nature, we are everywhere, okay? Dinosaurs were intersex, dogs are intersex, cats are intersex. So we are just a part of history. And even though we are part of the normal variation of the multiple ways of existing, we've been constantly shamed, mutilated, or often we are not even allowed to exist. So something that is happening right now is that there is a pre-implantation genetic testing in which a mother finds out a baby is intersex, so then the baby or the pregnancy is terminated. So we've been erased in multiple ways, okay? So we are erased once we're born, or we're erased even before being born, and then our identities have been erased as we grow, okay? Many intersex people don't know they are intersex, and many people find out they are intersex later in life. Intersex is not about having two genitals, it's actually about having variations of the characteristics of a body. It doesn't always need to be genitalia. It's multiple things that define what is sex and secondary sex characteristics, okay? It can be the internal organs, it can be your chromosomes, it can be the hormones, and it can be multiple aspects of how we understand the bodily appearance or our structure of our body structure, all right? So that's what I have to say, what is common on what you guys may be discussing, and like a female genital mutilation and intersex, that our practices, what happened to our bodies is actually being constructed in a sense that is being done by doctors. Therefore, there is a legitimacy over that, okay? So doctors perform these harmful practices, and then because these practices are performed by doctors as a normalization, then there is being kind of that set of consensus that those practices are actually therapeutic, or they have a good purpose, when it's not that the case. So we experience that same in many multiple ways, that sort of like feeling of that our bodily integrity being violated, and also having to constantly experience torture, multiple violations of our rights, the rights to health, and the rights of not being discriminated, and the right to have physical integrity. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, that was an amazing introduction. And I'd love to talk to you offline about if you'd be interested in doing a presentation at some stage, which you basically just did so eloquently. Yeah, it'd be fantastic over the coming months if you'd be interested in doing a presentation at the Bodyguards. And we have actually some items on our agenda relating to intersex. So I don't know if you're able to stay around for the next 2 hours.
Hopefully, yes. And I forgot to mention too that I'm also part of another organization which is called Rainbow Path. So these both organizations are in New Zealand. So Rainbow Path is an organization helping LGBTIQ refugees in New Zealand. And one of the commonalities or few things that we find in refugees coming to New Zealand, especially refugees coming from Somalia and some parts of Africa and Indonesia, is that female genital mutilation is a practice that often a lot of people experience. And speaking not about intersex, but speaking more especially about women or lesbian women or a bisexual woman. So that's kind of like intersections that I find interesting, at least in our kind of New Zealand context. And yeah, I'm now happy to share those experiences as well.
Yeah. So Eleni, do you have some awareness about the DSCD organization?
Excuse me, can you repeat again?
You have any link with the DSCD organization? The DSCD is people concerning with the disorder of sex development.
Oh yeah, so this is kind of like one of our one of the main arguments, or like our main causes is to remove the pathologization of our bodies. And DSD is one of the main reasons that are used by doctors to normalize our identities and normalize our bodies. Okay, and I'm not saying that we don't need surgeries, okay, or we don't need medical interventions, because some intersex people need these surgeries or these interventions. But the one aspect that is common on these violations is that we don't have self-determination, and we are not asking, giving consent whether we need or want these surgeries.
No, I am just thinking about if do you have any link with the DSCD organization or not?
I might have it. Yes, I need to look on my database. Yeah, I think I had it. I will share internally.
Yeah, because I am in the steering committee of the large organization of DSCD. It's basically in Scotland, but it is a global organization, and I think we can have some sort of link to have your voice inside the DSCD, because they are concerning about the psychological aspect. And actually, all issues you are talking about, it may be of concern to the DSCD. And I can help it because I'm in the steering committee of this DSCD.
That's fantastic. And yeah, and once again, this is one of the main reasons that are used to justify these harmful violations of our integrity. Yeah. So a lot of doctors use this idea that our bodies are not normal to justify in this, like these surgeries. And these surgeries are happening here in New Zealand. These surgeries happening in the States, are happening in the UK. So these surgeries are happening everywhere, but it happens silently. And all this is kept in a secrecy that is really even hard to find out whether these things are happening right now or not. And the medical records are never shown or never disclosed. So it is something that is happening. I mean, I just met like a girl, like a 13-year-old, and then she's been mutilated and she's here from New Zealand. But why I found out she was mutilated? Because she's just trying to find out what's going on with her body. And then we kind of assume that a country like New Zealand will be, a safe country where all these things are not happening, and still here it's even happening. So just imagine what is the situation in other parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Eliana, what sort of progress are you making with New Zealand authorities?
So there are three things happening right now. So we are really lucky with the government we have now, because it's somehow a government that is taking these issues seriously. So the first thing is that we are, one of the most horrible things that we experience as intersex persons is that only 8 countries in the world explicitly protects us from discrimination for being intersex, okay? So we are not explicitly protected pretty much in no country on the world, okay? And what is the meaning of that? Meaning that every time that we are protecting someone, we protect someone on the grounds of sex or sexual orientation in few countries, but we often leave behind sex characteristics as an aspect of the human identity that needs to be protected, okay? Because intersex is not a gender identity, and intersex cannot see as a sex, because we live in a world of binaries in which sex is only as male and female. So for us, intersex, when somebody adds in their legislation the word sex characteristics or intersex status, that's explicitly protecting us from harmful human rights violations. So in New Zealand, right now in New Zealand, they have introduced a bill in which we are actually being particularly protected from these harmful practices. Okay, so this is not harmful practices, sorry, for violations of our human rights. So this is happening right now. And the second thing happening is the conversion therapy, the ban on conversion therapy. So even though it's not an intersex specific issue, it has to do more with sexual orientation and gender identity. A lot of these two practices, which is normalization of your sexual orientation or your gender identity, is actually something that intersex people experience more often than any other population in the world, because once a body's being normalized, all these practices are used in order to affirm and actually to make that person to give a sense of that gender that was assigned or is expected in this person. So there is these psychological approaches and more medical interventions to make sure that that person conforms to that gender. And therefore also expecting that because that gender was assigned, that person should be also heterosexual. So all these practices are actually rooted in the same ideas that we have of normality, in which we conform bodies into a heteronormative way of understanding existence, life, and also cis-normative and endonormative understandings of reality.